Reach high, aim high, and obtain. Back to TaylorIt, and we are in the process of making the cheesecake. And we are specifically going to be making a gluten-free cheesecake. And what we are doing is we picked the recipient's favorite nut, which is pecans, but pretty much any nut, as long as it's not bitter, I think will pretty much do it. Just depends on your preference. I would say either pecans or walnuts, maybe even almonds, I think would be probably the best ones, but we actually prefer pecans as our favorite. And because I only need like a cup and a half, I'm just using my Bamix little food processor here to process this, because I can't justify getting out a really big machine for only a cup and a half. And this will go pretty fast. Now that should do it. I love this little attachment when I have just little things I want to grind up. I also use this when I make my bread and I need to grind up my items. Okay, and then I'm just basically scraping this all out of the container, because the bottom does kind of turn it into like a nut butter type consistency in the bottom, but that is okay. And I'm just gonna shake that, and I did. I got my cup and a half. I'm a little bit over just because it's a little bit challenging at times to estimate, but if you're a little bit over, no big deal. You just want to get as close to the 1.5 cups here as possible. Then what we're going to add is I've got 2 tablespoons of sugar, so we're going to add that in there. And then we also need, and I have not done this step yet, 2 tablespoons of room temperature butter. So we're going to get our butter here. So it's 1, and my hands are clean in case anybody was wondering. We always make sure we clean our hands before we start cooking. Okay, so there's my 2 tablespoons, and this will make a gluten-free cake crust for our cheesecake. I'm gonna close that up because I want to keep that together. And then what I'm going to do here is I'm going to stir this all together. And then what I've done over here is I've actually already greased together a springform pan, but this is not a Teflon springform pan. This is actually a stainless steel springform pan. And I personally prefer stainless steel. This is actually when we had to do a special order, actually through the UK in Amazon, and had to wait, what was it, 2 months to get it, just to make sure we were getting a stainless steel springform pan. Okay, and you can see the butter, because it's room temperature, it came together really good. So now we're going to put this over here in our pan. Do my best to scrape this all together. And what this does is, because the nut is naturally sweet, and then we've added just a little bit of sugar, it gives it that extra bit of sweetness. And occasionally I do miss one nut, but considering how quickly I'm doing it, it's not bad. You can see it really holds together well. You just got to spread it out. And then what we'll do is we'll come up the sides a bit too with this. But it's just pressing it together. What we're doing is 4 8-ounce organic cream cheese packages here, because it's about 2 pounds is what you're looking to do. I tend to like to make my version of homemade cream cheese, but if I don't have enough on hand, I have to go to the store and get the cream cheese. But if you do make, or at least my version of it, it changes the flavor in an excellent way. But this is our interim fix. Then what we're also gonna do is 1 cup of, and this is our homemade sour cream, but you can also get some in the store. You just need to make sure you have 1 cup of sour cream. Just making sure I get it all with my spatula there. Okay. Then we're gonna have 1 cup of sugar. You can also do swap out the sugar for honey too. So don't feel like
that's a raw sugar, so that's the reason the color is
a little bit more brown than the standard. And then this is actually 2 tablespoons of arrowroot, but you can also use cornstarch. I just personally prefer the arrowroot, but either one will work for this purpose. Okay. Making sure I get all my arrowroot there. Okay. Got that. Now, what I'm going to do is my vanilla extract. And this is actually my homemade vanilla extract, but just make sure it's a vanilla extract, and you're looking to do 1 teaspoon of the vanilla extract. And because this is over a year old now, it just really makes the flavor. Now, if you're wanting to know how you do it, oh, I love the smell. That's like my favorite smell in the world, pretty much. But basically, it's taking vanilla beans, putting it in vodka, and just simply letting it sit and marinate. And that's how come the color is so dark, is because I've got, I think it's about 20 vanilla beans in here is what I ended up doing. And can't really see them very well because I added more vodka to it, but they're down here, and because the color is so dark.
And you let it sit for how long?
Over a year. Over a year. But you want to do at least a year. They suggest a minimum of 6 months to a year before you start using it. I literally waited the year, and it's a little bit dark, as you can see. Then we are going to add so we did our 2 eggs. And you want to do 2 large eggs. And actually, let me always do them in a separate bowl just to make sure that they're good before I add it to the main. And it also gives me the opportunity to get any shells out if for some instance a shell happens to get into the cracked egg. It gives me the opportunity to feed it out without, yep, see there's a shell right there. There we go. Okay. Another reason why you don't put it in the main part. Like I said, if you get a shell in there, it gives you the opportunity to get it out without affecting things. You would typically beat this all together. Typically, if you don't have an immersion blender, you would actually beat the eggs on their own separately and then add it to the main part that's already been stirred together with your mixer ideally. But I'm gonna do the shortcut. And I can only do this because you can see how pliable that cream cheese is. It's because the cream cheese is already at room temperature. You can't really do this if you've not got them to room temperature, because it's typically too hard to put it all together. But this just makes it really quick and easy. And that way I don't have to do a separate bowl for this and try and add everything else. And because it also has this pour spout on the end, it makes it so that once I've got everything mixed together, I'm done. Pour this in now, and that's why I love using my Bamex to do this, is because I can put it in my big 8-cup measuring cup and just pour it. See, hook my hand in there, and it just makes it so much easier to pour this and transfer and everything. So much easier.
I love that measuring.
I know, I found this years ago at Crate and Barrel. And it even comes with a lid, and I love it. I think I use this every time I make Reuteri yogurt, which is pretty much every week. And then, of course, things like this, because it just makes it so much easier. I use it to make ganaches, because it makes it just so easy to just immediately put everything in there and then pour. It's just so much easier. Okay.
Okay. And now you bake it how long?
We're going to bake this now because we already preheated the oven to 450 degrees, and we're going to cook it that way for 10 minutes. And then we're going to reduce the temperature in the oven to 200 degrees, and then we're going to finish the cooking at that 200 degrees for 45 minutes. And then I'm just going to tap it a little bit to get rid of any air bubbles that might be in the batter. And then we'll put it in the oven now, and we'll be good to go. We just finished cooking the cheesecake at the 200 degrees, 45 minutes, and now I've set a timer for 3 hours, and we're gonna leave the oven cracked, and you can see the cake looks beautiful in there coming out. And also, as I wanted to mention that the crust, you don't have to have it chopped as finely as I did. Some people tend to like it more of a chunky crust, but I tend to grind it with the nuts very finely because we have a few people that don't like the larger pieces with the crust, but you could actually do more of a chunky crust with the nuts, and it'll make it a lot more easier to work with too. But we're going to let this sit now for 3 hours, slightly opened, oven off, and we'll come back and I'll show you how it looks after 3 hours. The cake finished the 3 hours in the oven with the door open. You can see it's got a really nice crust going around here without any breakage, very well put together. So now we're going to put this in the fridge for it to finish cooling down. It's very cool to the touch, but it still has to do the cooling down now in the fridge as we cooked it. And then tomorrow it will be fully ready for eating. So we're going to undo our cake here. There'll be a little bit stuck on the top, but you can see the majority of the crust stayed in place. It's just the top where it was just a little bit high. And we're cutting our cake in. And you can see that none of the cheesecake leaked out other than where I'm cutting now. How big a piece you want?
Well, not a big one.
But he wants a decent one. Okay, and we'll just put our under there and come up. Here.
You've washed it off and
Yes.
it's warm.
Yes. And there we go.
Awesome.
It should
There
actually.
we go.
Okay, so I have some people that specifically like my raspberry sauce, so I'm going to just drizzle this a little bit here. There we go. Sometimes it takes a little bit to come together. Okay.
Perfect.
And then we're going to place their piece on there so that they get the perfect bite. And there we
Oh,
go.
how pretty is that?
Yes.